Picture this, it's July 2015, and you're in Baltimore, a city of roughly 620,000 people squeezed into 92 square miles. 3 months have passed since Freddie Gray's death sparked protests and nightly curfews, but the tension never settled. In those 31 days, Baltimore records 45 homicides, an average of more than 1 murder every 18 hours, the worst monthly tally in more than 4 decades. Citywide arrests fell nearly 30% in the weeks after the Freddie Gray unrest, leaving more guns and grudges on the corners. Homicide detectives were drowning. Clearance rates slipped below 25%, meaning 3 out of 4 killers walked free. The violence wasn't just fatal. Hospitals saw over 150 shooting victims that month alone, averaging 1 every 5 hours. Trauma surgeons called it the busiest July they had ever logged. Before we get started on this video, make sure you go check out my website that's in the description, where I post viral videos daily, and plus make sure you like the video and share it with someone to spread the violence awareness.
Well, it is a sobering statistic. Just hours ago, Baltimore surpasses the number of murders for all of last year, with more than 4 months to go.
First person that was a victim of July was Nate Man Willard Jr., a 31-year-old, was shot and killed on July 2nd, 2015 around 1:41 p.m. in the 2200 block of North Fulton Ave. He was working on a construction site operating a Bobcat when a gunman approached and opened fire at close range. Willard had just celebrated his birthday the day before. He was pronounced dead at the scene. Witnesses reported seeing police pursue 2 individuals after the shooting. Grieving family members arrived shortly after, with one woman requiring medical attention due to an anxiety attack. Then, on the same day, July 2nd, 2015, 15-year-old Josh Remus Burnett, a black teenager from Baltimore's 3700 block of West Rogers Avenue, was fatally stabbed during a dispute over his cell phone. A 13-year-old has since been charged in the case. Josh, known for washing cars, cutting grass, playing football with the Glens Falls 49ers, and dreaming of becoming a leader, left behind a grieving family. They remember him as hard-working, caring, and full of life, traits that transformed his funeral into a celebration and continue to guide his mother's visits to his grave. Nathaniel left no criminal record behind, but his family did. His brother, father, grandfather, and another sibling were all victims of violence or addiction on these same streets. As his brother Tavon put it, "I've lost a lot to these streets." On July 3rd, 2015, at 8:50 p.m., 50-year-old Keith Glasgow was shot and killed on the 3400 block of W. Caton Avenue in West Baltimore's St. Joseph's neighborhood. A fixture in his block, Keith was known for mowing lawns, trimming bushes, running errands, and checking in on neighbors. Kingdom First Ministries pastor Mark Holland, who known him for over 15 years, said he was a community guy. Holland remembered him as nice, but with a temper. Someone who looked out for others even if he stood his ground when pushed. Police arrested 42-year-old Larry Dixon, charging him with first-degree murder and weapons violations in connection with Keith's killing. Then on July 5th, Edward Burrows was 26 years old. That evening of July 5th, 2015, he stood on the 2000 block of Kennedy Avenue, a tightly packed row house block in East Baltimore. Described by friends as resilient and outgoing, he had one child, a young life that depended on him. Without warning, gunfire erupted. Police later logged the scene. Edward was shot on that residential stretch in front of homes he likely knew well. The death was officially classified as a homicide under investigation. No suspect, no motive, just another life extinguished amid a city in crisis. By the end of that night, Edward became the 148th homicide victim in Baltimore for the year. His death counted toward a staggering 45 murders in July alone, time for the city's deadliest month in over 40 years. On the morning of July 6, 2015, just before 10 o'clock a.m., 21-year-old Derwin Jones was shot and killed on the 1 block of North Gilmore Avenue in the Franklin Square neighborhood of West Baltimore. Little is publicly known about the moments leading up to his death, and his family chose not to comment. On July 7, 2015, 41-year-old Eric Renard Forrester was shot and killed around 8:15 p.m. on the 300 block of North Hilton Street in West Baltimore. Investigators believe the shooting happened during a robbery at a dice game being played on a nearby basketball court. Although Eric had a past involving multiple handgun charges, including a 2002 murder case in which he was found not guilty, police stated his death did not appear to be connected to any of those prior incidents. Only the next day it was Lamont Randall, 39 years old, on the night of July 7, 2015 at approximately 10:30 p.m. He stood on the 900 split of West Fayette Street near the University of Maryland, Baltimore campus. Two vans, a white one and a burgundy one, pulled up and multiple occupants got out and opened fire into the crowd. Lamont, also known on the street as Dirty, was shot in that barrage and died on scene. He was one of 3 people killed that night, alongside Gerald Thompson, 34, and Jacqueline Parker, 53, while a 4th victim survived with non-fatal injuries. Police classified the attack as a targeted crime, confirming it was not random nor connected to the nearby university. Detectives later tied the violence to internal conflicts within the Black Guerrilla family gang. Some in law enforcement feared Lamont's death would spark more violence in the streets. On July 7th, the same day only about 30 minutes later, 25-year-old Antonio Anderson was fatally stabbed around 10:55 p.m. on the 1500 block of Sherwood Avenue in West Baltimore. Just weeks earlier, Antonio had celebrated his birthday on Facebook, writing, "Feeling blessed, just turned 25 today." 2 days before his death, he posted again, "Thank God for another day." Police later arrested Randy Jones, a friend of Antonio's, charging him with first-degree murder. Authorities say the deadly encounter stemmed from an argument between the two. Antonio's family chose not to comment publicly on the tragedy, but the loss of a young life already marked by violence, the first shooting he survived in 2010, cuts deep. John F. Davis was 48 years old when he was killed during a wave of shootings in Baltimore's overnight hours on July 7, 2015. The shooting was reported as part of a series of firearm incidents that left 4 people injured or dead that night, including Davis himself. According to initial police bulletins, John was fatally wounded in a targeted attack despite being caught up in a chaotic evening of violence where little was known publicly about the exact block or context. Authorities described the scene simply as one of multiple overnight city shootings, and Davis's death was cataloged as a homicide under investigation. No suspects were identified in the immediate aftermath and no motive was disclosed. As you can see, multiple people have died on the same day on July 7th, continuing the streak going on to this next one, which just on July 7th, 6 people died in total. On July 8th, 2015 at 1:20 p.m., 21-year-old Gary Jackson was shot and killed on the 1700 block of West Landvale Street in West Baltimore. Gary had just graduated from Augusta Fells Savage Institute of Visual Arts and was preparing to start training in HVAC. His sister described him as a respectful, caring young father who loved football, rapping, and spending time with his 1-year-old son. Police began investigating whether the shooting was drugged. Court records show Gary had pleaded guilty to a handgun charge just 3 months earlier, but his family said he was focused on turning things around. Stephen Justin Lewis was 31 years old when he was killed in a shooting in Northeast Baltimore on July 9th, 2015. According to WBAL-TV, police responded that night to a report of a serious shooting in the area where Stephen was struck and died from his wounds. While news coverage labeled him as seriously wounded and confirmed his death, they did not release the exact street address. On July 10th, 2015, at 3:41 p.m., 19-year-old Darius Johnson was shot and killed on the 5100 block of Park Heights Avenue in Northwest Baltimore. Neighbors said Darius was a practicing Muslim who enjoyed basketball and riding dirt bikes through the neighborhood. His family chose not to speak publicly, but those who knew him described a young man who stayed active and close to his community. Then Tyrell Hardy, age 22, was shot and killed during a series of 6 shootings across Baltimore on July 10, 2015. According to WBAL-TV, police identified him specifically at the 3400 block of Chesterfield Avenue, where he was found suffering from gunshot wounds to the head and hand. That night, 8 people were shot across the city in coordinated waves of violence, Tyrell being one of the fatal victims. Police responded to multiple calls citywide, struggling to piece together whether these were random acts or connected incidents. By then, the city was reeling from 45 murders in 31 days, matching a record from 1972. Every new victim deepened Baltimore's trauma, and Tyrell's story was yet another chapter in a month that refused to end. Then Tiffany Lowry was 31, a mother of 2, described lovingly by her family. On July 10, 2015, her life ended in a rain of bullets when 2 men opened fire at the 1300 block of James Street in Picktown, a neighborhood in southwest Baltimore. Surveillance footage from a nearby corner store captured the attack. Tiffany was shot multiple times in the back as she walked near the entrance to an alley. She collapsed nearby and later succumbed to her wounds. The medical examiner confirmed 7 gunshot wounds on her body. Deshaun Gibson was later convicted of her murder, with prosecutors citing that surveillance video and witness testimony identifying him as one of 2 shooters. Her death was one more blow to a city already bleeding. Tiffany's brother was also killed less than a year later, turning her death into a tragic echo of a family's grief. On July 11th, only a week into that brutal month, violence struck again in the early hours of Baltimore's North Durham Street. At 2:26 a.m., a 40-year-old man, later identified as Gregory Higgins, was found suffering from multiple gunshot wounds on the 1800 block of North Durham. An emergency crews rushed him to the hospital, but he succumbed to his injuries. Just moments earlier, around 1:15 a.m., a 48-year-old woman was shot in the chest on the 300 block of Frankentown Road. She survived and was hospitalized in stable condition. At 1:50 a.m., a 25-year-old man was struck in the shoulder on the 200 block of Conkling Street. He too was taken to the hospital and listed as stable. That evening, July 11th, police responded to a shooting on the 4300 block of Wabash Avenue, where they discovered 38-year-old James Ricardo Smith suffering from a gunshot wound. He was identified as the 4th victim in what WBL-TV described as 4 shot in Baltimore Saturday. Detectives found no immediate explanation. Witnesses reported hearing gunfire in quick succession, but no suspects came forward, and the case remained unsolved in those early hours. James' name was added to a grim listing of the city's July deaths, a plot of violence traced on interactive maps throughout Baltimore. With the death toll climbing, investigators urged anyone with information to help bring clarity and maybe closure to James's family. On July 11, 2015, just over an hour after another fatal shooting in the city, 38-year-old James Ricardo Smith was gunned down in the 4300 block of East Wabash Avenue at 9:53 p.m. Dante Barnes was 39 when he was shot and killed during a chaotic night in Baltimore on July 11, 2015. Police and first responders reported multiple shootings that Saturday, and Dante was named the single fatality in one of the 5 late-night incidents that left others wounded across the city. Tyrone Johnson was 39 when officers responded to a shot spotter alert on the 1400 block of Mosier Street in West Baltimore during the late afternoon of July 12, 2015. Police later confirmed Tyrone had sustained a fatal gunshot wound. Medics pronounced him dead at the scene. The incident was one of 2 homicides reported in that neighborhood that day. Authorities attributed both to the same wave of afternoon gunfire. Tyrone's death added to Baltimore's growing total, just days after multiple other shootings had shaken the city. On July 12, 2015, at 2:32 a.m., 28-year-old Marvin Costin Jr. was shot multiple times in the back in the 1800 block of East Federal Street, just steps away from where police say he lived. The early morning gunfire cut through the quiet and left the neighborhood shaken. After the shooting, Costin's family quickly moved away, and no one has spoken publicly about the case. According to investigators, the motive may have stemmed from a dispute over a handgun. Just a few hours later, on July 12, 2015, at 6:55, I.M. 32-year-old Frederick Samuel Taylor was gunned down in the 2100 block of East Eager Street. He was one of 2 people shot in the incident. The other victim survived. Taylor had spent much of the last 15 years in and out of prison. His record included a 2002 charge for attempted first-degree murder, which resulted in a plea deal for first-degree assault. Authorities couldn't locate any of his family members to speak on his behalf. On July 13, 2015, at 12:08 p.m., 33-year-old Robert Lee Jackson was gunned down in broad daylight in the 800 block of North Belnord Avenue, East Baltimore. A father of 2 young children and a former inmate trying to turn his life around, Jackson had been working construction jobs and distancing himself from the streets. But just 2 months before his death, he was indicted on drug distribution charges and awaiting trial. Witnesses say 3 men approached and opened fire on him without warning. His partner, Tamara Stokes, said Jackson's shift toward a family-first lifestyle upset some of his old associates. 2 weeks after his killing, tragedy struck again when a house fire left his grieving family without their belongings. Only 20 minutes later, Ronald, known by some as Dave or Big Davon, was a 30-year-old truck driver and a proud graduate of Patterson High School. On July 13, 2015, police were dispatched to the 3400 block of Cardenas Avenue around early Monday afternoon, 12:29 p.m. They found him with multiple gunshot wounds, and despite rapid response, he was pronounced dead at the scene. This shooting was one of 5 separate incidents that day, which together left 5 people dead and 11 injured across the city. Officials later said they believe multiple shooters were involved and were reviewing surveillance and witness footage, not yet certain if the violence was targeted or indiscriminate. On July 15, 2015, at 1:12 a.m., 16-year-old Teron Singleton was shot in the 3500 block of West Garrison Avenue. He was one of 4 people wounded in the incident. His friends rushed him to Sinai Hospital, where he died from his injuries. A student at Baltimore Community High School, Teron was known for riding and repairing dirt bikes and had a talent for working on anything mechanical. On July 15th at the 6000 block of Belle Vista Avenue, 22-year-old Delvin Trusty lost his life to gunfire in the middle of another afternoon shooting. Police reports identified him at that location, confirming he was shot and later pronounced dead by responding officers. That same day, Baltimore saw 4 people fatal and 7 injured across multiple shootings. Delvin's death was part of this grim cluster. On July 15, 2015 at 5:20 p.m., 33-year-old Damon Tisdale was shot and killed in the 1 block of North Carey Street. He had been out of jail for just 2 weeks after an attempted murder charge was dropped. A certified mechanic, Tisdale was trying to get his life back on track and had planned a summer trip with his daughter. Police believe the shooting may have been retaliation. No suspects have been identified. Just when it seemed like things couldn't get any darker, tragedy hit a home on the 8900 block of Yvonne Avenue in Perry Hall. In the early morning hours of July 17, 2015, police discovered 12-year-old Julian Rory Jr. and his 10-year-old brother Ian Rory, both shot and killed by their own father, Julian Rory Sr., who then turned the gun on himself. The family had recently been struggling, and police later found a note from the father explaining he'd lost his job. Neighbors described the boys as outgoing, full of life, and always outside playing sports. Shatak Lawrence, a 25-year-old African-American man, was shot and killed on July 19, 2015 at 9:30 p.m. in the 1100 block of North Longwood Street. He was a known friend of Freddie Gray and had previously spoken out about police violence. His death came after a confrontation with his girlfriend's ex-boyfriend, who was later charged in the case. Lawrence had 2 children and worked with his uncle making gold jewelry. Albert Mullen, a 36-year-old man, was shot and killed on July 21, 2015 at 8:30 a.m. in the 4300 block of Eldon Road. He was found dead behind tall bushes in an alley near his home. Known as Buddha, Mullen was a father of 3 and remembered by family as a devoted family man. Police have not released further details regarding a suspect or motive. Rajayi Sincere, a 30-year-old African-American man, was shot and killed on July 22, 2015 at 12:00 a.m. in the 600 block of North Payson Street. He was gunned down outside his fiance's home, reportedly by a shooter who came from a nearby alley. Police believe the killing was connected to an earlier dispute at a motorcycle club. Sincere, who had previously served time under the name Robert Moore, was working to turn his life around. His murder remains unsolved. Sina Masudi, a 1-year-old Asian male, was killed by asphyxiation and found dead in his mother's car on July 22, 2015, though the incident occurred on June 23rd. The case was ruled a homicide in July, making it part of that month's count. His mother, Sahar Horajabi, who had been battling postpartum depression, took her own life by jumping from a parking garage in downtown Baltimore. July 22, 2015. That night at 11:00 p.m., police found 34-year-old Jefferson Bowden suffering from a fatal gunshot wound on the 1200 block of Clendon Street in East Baltimore. First responders arrived after neighbors reported hearing shots and discovered him unresponsive in the street. Baltimore Sun coverage noted this was one of at least 3 homicides that occurred overnight in the city. Detectives canvassed the neighborhood but turned up no witnesses or suspects immediately. Daquan Mason was 20 years old when he was shot and killed on July 23, 2015 on the 2700 block of Kennedy Avenue in East Baltimore. That afternoon, police responded to a report of gunfire and found Daquan lying in the street. He had suffered fatal gunshot wounds and was pronounced dead at the scene. His death was part of another bloody 24 hours in Baltimore, following at least 2 other homicides reported overnight. A warm July evening in northwest Baltimore, July 23, 2015, took a tragic turn on the 4000 block of Glengyle Avenue. That night, 23-year-old Clairo Myers III was fatally stabbed inside a hotel room after a dispute over money. According to Baltimore State's attorney records, Clairo and a woman had checked them together, and when his companion handed $78.00 to Tavon Harris, Clairo demanded the change. Tensions escalated, and by 9:30 p.m., Harris stabbed him in the torso during the argument. Clairo was rushed to a hospital but succumbed to his injury. Investigators later charged Tavon Harris with manslaughter and firearm possession. Authorities confirmed his conviction, followed surveillance review and witness interviews. The dispute, which began over just a few dollars, ended in violence, highlighting how quickly routine nights were turning deadly in Baltimore that summer. As the city was still reeling from earlier shootings, this incident reminded everyone that danger could erupt anywhere at any moment. On July 24, 2015, 39-year-old Damon L. Ramsey was shot on the 2300 block of Harford Road in East Baltimore. It was late at night, just before midnight, when police responded to reports of gunfire and found him lying in the street with a gunshot wound to the back of the head. He was rushed to the hospital but died a short time later. Investigators later arrested 59-year-old Maurice Page, charging him with first-degree murder. The shooting was one of several acts of violence in the city that weekend, adding to a summer that was already marked by relentless loss. On July 25, 2015, shots rang out on the 1800 block of Saratoga Street in Baltimore. Charles Diggs, 37 years old, was found in the street with gunshot wounds and died before he could make it to the hospital. Police arrived quickly and started searching for clues, but no arrests were made that night. It was the night of Sunday, July 26, 2015, when 23-year-old Marcus Tafari Samuel Downer was walking near the 5500 block of Reuben Avenue. That evening turned tragic when shots rang out. Marcus was struck and pronounced dead at the scene. WBA-TV later reported it was one of 3 fatalities amid a weekend that left 14 people shot across Baltimore. On July 26, 2015, 26-year-old Jaswinder Singh was shot and killed during a robbery on the 4800 block of Alhambra Avenue in West Baltimore. He was working as a delivery driver when he was targeted by a group of men that night. Police said Jaswinder was found in his vehicle with gunshot wounds and died at the scene. Detectives later arrested Marlo Lomax, charging him in connection with the murder, as the investigation pointed to an attempted robbery gone wrong. On July 26, 2015, Franklin Grayson, aged 24, was shot and killed on the 2300 block of Druid Hill Avenue in Baltimore. Police found him with gunshot wounds that night, and he was pronounced dead at the scene. That weekend, violence swept through the city, with multiple shootings adding to the sense of chaos. On July 27, 2015, 18-year-old Michael Poston was shot and killed just before 11 a.m. on the 1600 block of West North Avenue in Baltimore. Police say he was struck several times and, despite being rushed to the hospital, died from his wounds. Detectives later arrested Rayshard Johnson, labeling the incident a retaliation shooting, captured on MTA police cameras. Johnson, caught fleeing in an alley nearby, confessed to approaching Michael and opening fire. On July 28, 2015, in the 1400 block of Bloomingdale Road in Baltimore, 23-year-old Lerod Warner lost his life to gun violence. Police responded to reports of a shooting and found Warner suffering from gunshot wounds. Despite efforts to save him, he was pronounced dead at the scene. Another young life taken, another family left with questions and grief. On July 29, 2015, at 2:15 a.m., 24-year-old Marquise Tisdale was shot and killed in a double shooting on the 1 block of North Abingdon Avenue. An aspiring rapper, Marquise had just landed a new job and was preparing to provide for his growing family. He left behind a 2-year-old daughter and an unborn child due just before his birthday. Despite a history of drug arrests, his loved ones say he was focused on turning things around. On the same day, on July 29, 2015, at 7:00 p.m., 40-year-old Tion Sims was shot and killed in the 2200 block of Annapolis Road, the same stretch where, at just 16 years old, he was convicted of a fatal robbery and sentenced to 30 years. After serving time and being released in 2012, Sims had been trying to rebuild his life. He stayed out of legal trouble and was working various jobs despite struggling physically and emotionally. Police believe he was specifically targeted, though the motive remains unclear. On July 30th, 2015, at 11:38 a.m., 18-year-old Jermaine Mitter was shot and killed in the 3400 block of Elmore Avenue. His death struck a personal chord within the Baltimore Police Department. His uncle, Detective Roderick Mitter, was on duty when he received the devastating news. The tragedy came just a year after the detective lost his own brother, Charles Mitter, to a stabbing and shooting. Jermaine's killing marked another painful chapter of loss for the Mitter family, this time claiming a young man just beginning his adult life. On July 30th, 2015, 29-year-old Dante Dixon Jr., a rapper from Baltimore, was shot and killed in the 4500 block of Edmondson Avenue. News of his death spread quickly through the city, shaking the local music community and those who knew him personally. Police found Dante with gunshot wounds, but despite efforts, he did not survive. The investigation into his killing left many questions unanswered, but his impact on Baltimore's rap scene and the pain of his loss are still felt today. Gregory Tynes, a 59-year-old African-American man, was shot and killed on July 31st, 2015, at 12:00 p.m. in the 2900 block of Spring Hill Avenue. He was a retired Air Force veteran who walked with a cane and was considered by family as an innocent victim. Police believe he was killed by mistake and continuing to investigate.